What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome. Alex here for the Impact Factor. We're here, kinda as tradition would have it, to review and to look at some of the cards for this upcoming Hearthstone expansion. That's right, Hearthstone, the digital trading card game from Blizzard Entertainment, is here to bring us 134, I should have fact-checked, 134 new cards, bringing with it the standard format, the wild format, and a lot's changing up this next week. When you see this, it'll be posted the day it comes out, so happy Whispers of the Old Gods expansion. So 134 cards is a lot to review, and I thought about doing it a number of different ways, but I figured, you know what, let's go through a couple of cards that got me really excited, cards that I want to try and put into decks, make decks for, and so let's get it going. I chose 15 cards from Whispers of the Old Gods that got me excited. Let's go to the first one here. I organized this by class, but really it doesn't matter. We chose 15 cool cards. Let's get into it. The first card I chose here is Fandral Staghelm. It is a 4-cost Druid minion, 3 attack, 5 health, legendary, and its effect reads, your choose one effects cards have both effects combined. So this is an insanely powerful effect. This was one of the last cards revealed. It was revealed last Thursday on a Blizzard stream. Druid legendaries have been in a tough place for a while because none of them have really seen play. Cenarius saw a decent number of play in Ramp Druid back in the day, but really hasn't found home in any Druid, predominantly the combo Druid, which will now no longer be in Standard, so good news for that. But then you have Malorn, which never really saw a play, Aviana, never really saw a play, but I think this one is poised to see a lot of play. For a 4-mana 3/5, the stat line isn't bad, and so even just as a vanilla minion, I think it's acceptable. But really, where we get into the meat of this card is its text. Your choose one cards have both effects combined. Even just in Standard alone, Druid has a lot of choose one effects that I think are so powerful when you get to do both. Namely the Druid card, so Druid of the Claw, Druid of the Fang even, Druid of the Saber, and Druid of the Flame. Druid of the Flame, with this card in play, is a 3-mana 5/5. Druid of the Claw is a 5-mana 4/6 charge taunt. The list goes on, but that doesn't only apply to creatures, though. That also applies to your spells. So Wrath is deal 4 damage and draw a card. Your Nourish even is gain 3 mana crystals, draw 3 cards, I believe it is. No one really plays Nourish. But this card is really powerful. For its stat line, it's really good. You could save it and play it with a spell later. I don't think you're going to want to drop this just on turn 4. But dropping it in addition with something else, like using Innervate perhaps to Innervate out another card after this, I think could be really powerful. And just really helps shore up a lot of different Druid decks. I think it fits pretty comfortably in a lot of different Druid archetypes. I think it would fit into a Ramp Druid archetype. I think it fit into a mid-range Druid archetype. Potentially even fitting into a Beast Druid archetype. We'll see. I think Fandral Staghelm is pretty powerful. It's exciting that Druid's getting a playable legendary for the first time in a long time, and I'm certainly excited to try and throw him into a deck or two. I mean, come on. Ancient of Lore is going to be a 7-mana. You're going to actually be able to uproot. It'll be a 7-mana 10/10 taunt. That's pretty good, and especially with Big Game Hunter nerfed, some of these effects get a little bit better. We'll talk about that with a Shaman card. Next card up is a Hunter card. Is an 8-mana epic spell called Call of the Wild. The text of the spell reads, summon all 3 animal companions. And so at face value, this doesn't seem super powerful, right? You know, your animal companion card is a 3-mana spell. You get a random one of either Misha, Leok, or Huffer. Always Huffer, right? But having all 3 of these within one card, I think is a little bit more powerful than it lets on, at least initially. For 8 mana, you're getting a 5/2 charge, a 5/4 taunt, and a 2/4, and all of those are beasts, enabling other beast synergy, and that's on an empty board. So you have a 5/4 taunt and a 5 direct damage just out of the card, leaving the 2/4 body also of Leok. And so I think on an empty board, on a full board, this card is good both when you're ahead and when you're behind. I think it might fit maybe as a one-of, maybe you don't want to run 2 copies of the spell, but if there is a mid-range or even control Hunter deck, I think both of those could find a home for Call of the Wild. Obviously, your typical face Hunter deck is going to be playing this. They don't play any cards much above 4 mana. But I think this card is really cool. I love the design of it. I love the flavor. The art's pretty great too. I think this could easily find its way as a one-of in some Hunter decks. I personally chose this. I know a lot of people aren't talking about this card. I personally chose it because I'm a big fan of the Hunter class. I really, back in the day, that was one of my first decks was mid-range, kind of Beast Hunter. Hunter's been in an interesting place for a while where it's not really played. The mid-range Hunter's got a lot of counters. But again, Standard's coming, so I'm not here to speculate on what are going to be the powerful decks in Standard, because it's a whole new format literally. So it's a lot to talk about that with that. Maybe I'll make a video later when Standard actually arrives, but Call of the Wild's card got me pretty excited. Next card up is a Mage card. It is a Mage minion. It is a common rarity, 6 mana, 5 attack, 5 health, the Faceless Summoner. Card text on this reads, Battle Cry, summon a random 3-cost minion. Oh, Shredder effects, welcome. Faceless Summoner, I think, is an all-around extremely solid card for Mage that will find its way into any kind of tempo Mage, mid-range Mage, maybe even a control Mage, but probably not. But the card is just so darn good, stat line wise, body wise. So 3 costs, you do get a fair amount of variation in terms of 3 costs. You could even get like an Acolyte of Pain, which is a 3 mana 1/3. But you have a lot of 3 mana 4/4s as well, like Ogre Brutes and now I guess Arcane Golem. I think for 6 mana 5/5 isn't bad. Period. We've seen cards played like that. Sylvanas, Thorson are 6 mana 5/5 cards that have powerful effects in C play. And I'd say summoning a 3-cost card for free is a pretty powerful effect. It's kind of crazy to me that this is a common card. Potentially Blizzard wanted this to make mages better in Arena. I don't really know the case. Regardless of the rarity, and card rarity isn't always indicative of power level, but this is a very powerful card that I think will fit pretty neatly into a lot of decks. I remember myself, I played a lot of Casino Mage back in the day. I was even running, I think the card is called Grand Crusader in my deck, just because I wanted a card in the 6th slot that wasn't Sylvanas, because that card is not too powerful in Casino Mage. Well, here you go. It fits the Casino effect. It's a random minion, as well as, it fits the 6th slot well. 3-cost minions, I think, should not be overlooked. You get some good stat lines, some good effects on 3-cost minions. So 6 mana summoning 2 big minions on the board too. That's pretty great. Mage got a good card here with Faceless Summoner. Next card I want to talk about is the Selfless Hero. This is a Paladin card. It is a 1 mana minion with 2 attack and 1 health. And it has a Death Rattle. The Death Rattle reads, give a random friendly minion Divine Shield. So this card is powerful for a number of reasons. Maybe it might find a better home in Wild, where you've got Shielded Mini-Bot and Muster for Battle and a ton of other, and Piloted Shredder and a lot of other really strong cards that have made mid-range Paladin a thing. But even, I think, in Standard, this has a lot of potential. I guess to clarify, all the card reviews I'm talking about here are I'm excited for in Standard. Wild is just too crazy of a format to even try to predict. But this is target numero uno for your opponent. It's going to want to force them to try and get rid of it by whatever means necessary. So if you drop this on turn 1, on their turn 1 they can't respond. If you're dropping a minion turn 2, that minion's guaranteed to get Divine Shield. Or if you drop this later on the board, you can get a Divine Shield minion too. Or if they try to waste resources killing it before you have another minion on the board, that's already a net gain because this is just a 1 mana 2/1. 1 mana 2/1's a pretty decent stat line for the card itself. And with the powerful Death Rattle effect, I think this fits pretty nicely into a lot of minion-based Paladin decks. I suspect some form of mid-range Paladin will still probably exist in Standard. I mean, Keeper of Uldaman is going nowhere. You still have Follow the Rules with Eldor Peacekeeper. I think all in all, Paladin looks to be in good shape for Standard. I think this card could easily fit into it. 1 drops are great, 2/1. And Divine Shield is not to be underestimated because it allows you to make so much better trades in the early game. If you drop this and you drop, a powerful 2-drop, then that 2-drop, it enables a great trade in your favor into their 2-drop or their 3-drop. It allows you to trade up a lot. And so I think Selfless Hero is one I haven't seen a lot of chatter about, but I think is pretty powerful and could easily find its way into a number of different Paladin decks. So I'm excited. I was trying to keep it to one per class, but certain classes got not too much in the set. Other classes got a lot more. But I wanted to spend a little time talking about the Paladin Legendary in Whispers of the Old Gods. That's right, Ragnaros the Light Lord. I'm a big fan of Ragnaros the Fire Lord, but Ragnaros the Light Lord seems to be pretty powerful himself. He's an 8 mana minion, 8 attack, 8 health, much like his Fire Lord counterpart. And his text reads, at the end of your turn, restore 8 health to a damaged friendly character. And so again, since it doesn't specify, this is a random one. It will heal another one of your minions if it's damaged, or it will heal your face. I think, much like Ragnaros the Fire Lord, the fact that this effect takes place immediately is not to be overlooked. It's pretty powerful. Because regardless, you're spending 8 mana, you're getting an 8/8, and something's getting healed for 8. Whether you have a damaged minion on the board or your face, that's pretty darn good. You got the Lay on Hands without drawing the 3 cards. Also importantly, this card was in a kind of iffy place at first before we knew the changes that were happening to some of the classic and basic cards for Standard. And since we saw that Big Game Hunter got nerfed, this is even better. An 8/8 is nothing to scoff at. Unlike his Firelord counterpart, this can attack, so the turn after you play it, you can also trade it into something, and it could even heal itself, allowing you a series of favorable trades, assuming they don't, execute it or Shadow Word Death it. But I think, again, this is a great way for maybe the end of a mid-range curve, potentially find a home in a control kind of Paladin, maybe even a Cthun control Paladin, who knows, I don't know if that's going to be a thing. But the 8 healing right away is super powerful. 8/8 bodies, not to be overlooked. I think this one's good. Maybe even great. And the art of it's pretty sweet. I mean, Ragnaros holding a hammer and a shield. It's strange that this is a Paladin legendary specifically. It would have been nice maybe to make this a neutral and give Paladin something else, but hey. I mean, the rich get richer. Blizzard sure loves Paladins, and I think Paladins will sure love Ragnaros Lightlord. Moving on, we've got a Priest card. I know, shocking, right? A Priest actually gets a semi-decent card in expansion. Don't get too excited. The Priest class really didn't get that much. Maybe Standard is favorable to Priest for other reasons, but at least I got one card that's good here. So this is the Shifting Shade. It is a 4 mana minion, 4 attack, 3 health, and it also has a Death Rattle. The Death Rattle reads, copy a card from your opponent's deck and add it to your hand. So you can look at this card in a number of different ways. This could be Death Rattle draw card, so 4 mana, 4/3, draw card. I think it's pretty good. His stats are a little bit underpowered, but those of you who are familiar with playing in pre-standard environment, a 4 mana, 4/3 with the powerful Death Rattle effect can see a lot of play. I mean, Paladin Shredder was everywhere, 4 mana, 4/3. The stat line really didn't affect that too much. Paladin Shredder is, of course, rotating out, but maybe this gives Priests a way to kind of round out their 4-drop. They did already have a good 4-drop with Alchemy Soul Priest, which isn't going anywhere. But I think Shifting Shade offers something unique. It gives you that little mini Thought Steal effect or Mind Division effect. Typically, your opponent is going to be playing some pretty good cards because they want to make a deck that can win. You're not guaranteed to have something as... I think drawing a card from your opponent's deck is just strictly worse than drawing a card from your own deck. Because you obviously, cards in your deck synergize with your minions, with your spells. But you could also grab something insanely powerful from your opponent's deck. Like you could, say you're playing against a Paladin, you could grab the Ragnaros Lightlord and get another endgame threat. I'm not quite sure where this will fit into Priest since their archetypes have kind of been all over the place. Essentially super controlling or dragon and nothing in between. But I really like this card. I think this card is sufficiently powerful that if the shell for a deck exists that this fits into, I think he'll be an easy addition. Probably 2 of course, as well. I think Shifting Shade's great. Maybe it'll give Priest a little bit more legs than Standard. Moving on to a Rogue card. That's a Rogue. Again, this is probably another video for another time. With the change to Blade Flurry that the internet and myself included are mad about, the Rogue class is in an interesting position. It's not really poised to do anything quite unique or really anything that powerful. But Journey Below, I think, is a nice tool in the Rogue's tool chest, or the Rogue's dagger chest, or chest, period. So Journey Below is a 1 mana Rogue spell, and its text reads, discover a Death Rattle card. So Blizzard seems to be pushing Death Rattle Rogue extremely hard with this next expansion. They want Rogue to play this kind of weaker version of Zoo, in my opinion. But aside from trying to make Death Rattle Rogue a thing in Standard, which who knows if it is or isn't, I'm sure it'll be fine. I think a 1 mana spell that does a pretty powerful effect should be overlooked for any kind of Rogue deck. Death Rattle cards typically are pretty good. The Death Rattle effects affect the board, they get you a minion, they get you a draw card, and as we know, as we learned from Discover and League of Explorers, Discover has I believe it is 3 times the chance of finding a class-specific card. So when you consider that, I think this card gets even better, because of course a lot of the powerful Death Rattles in Standard are rotating out. I mean, you can't get Shredder, you can't get, any number of the Death Rattles, like Naxxramas, you can't get a Sludge Belcher or Haunted Creeper. But what you can get is the increased chance for the Rogue Death Rattles. So, Tomb Pillager, one of now the best 4-drops in the game, is Tomb Pillager, and you have a much higher right of finding that. The new Rogue Legendary, which I won't be talking about, Zaril, the Poison, the Toxic Mind, he has a chance. You also have new Rogue cards that come with this expansion. There's the 4 mana 4/4 that Death Rattles adds 2 attack to your card, the Pirate card, as well as Undercity Huckster, the 2 mana 2/2 that Death Rattles to give you a card from the opponent's class. So I think this is a nice flexibility. Important to remember, Rogue's mechanic is combo, and so 1 mana spell really helps to enable combo. It draws you a card. We've seen cards that have similar effects like this, like Raven Idol has started to see more and more play in Druid, and I think this can fit into a lot of rogue decks, even if they're not the Death Rattle theme. Get a Sylvanas off of this, it could help your late game. Get yourself a Loot Hoarder off this, it's really not that bad. I like Journey Below. I don't know how powerful it is in the long run, but I think it's pretty good, and I think it'll fit into a decent number of rogue decks. I know I said Rogue didn't get that much, but I wanted to talk about another card, because Rogue is a class, I think it's within my top 3, maybe 4 classes to play in the game, and it's been tough out there, folks, playing Rogue. But I think this card is really exciting. This card is Shadowcaster. It is a 5-mana minion, 4 attack, 4 health. So just looking at the stat lines, it's not great. It should probably be at least a 4-5 or a 5-5. And so it's got to have a powerful effect, right? And it does. Shadowcaster has a battle cry, which reads, choose a friendly minion, add a 1/1 copy of it to your hand that costs 1. So this is cool in a lot of the same ways as Journey from Below, in a lot of different ways too. Certainly this feels like it would fit into some Death Rattle Rogue archetype, because if you get a 1-mana, you have a 1/1 copy of a card with Death Rattle, that Death Rattle is still going to trigger. A 1/1 copy of a Sylvanas is still going to steal an opponent's minion. A 1/1 copy of Tomb Pillager is still going to get you that extra coin. But I think this is, again, dependent on having a board, which we'll see whether or not rogues can actually maintain a decent board. But again, you don't want to overlook this 1-mana, 1/1 creature is also going to activate combo, because you can play for 1 mana, you can activate combo, you can get that going. If you're a late game rogue deck, I've heard talk that maybe a rogue Cthun deck might be in the works. Maybe there's enough cards to support that. I think Shadowcaster is an obvious inclusion, because you can get some of your late game powerful legendaries, even a Cthun, that can enter the battlefield and do its little battle cry again. So this is very good with cards that have battle cries, very good with cards that have Death Rattle, and I think it could find a place in some kind of rogue decks. If nothing else, I also wanted to highlight it here because I think Shadowcaster has one of the best arts in this set. The art's great. She looks really cool. Maybe I'm going to craft a golden version. Maybe I can open a golden version. We'll see. We'll find out here on the Impact Factor. Moving on, what I think is probably the most powerful card in this set, which is weird to say. Maybe the second most powerful card in this set. Yeah, it's a Shaman card. Shaman got a lot of love in Whispers of the Old Gods. Like, a lot of love. A lot of their cards are really good. I think Shaman is going to be a force to be reckoned with. I know people say that every expansion, but trust me, I think Shaman is going to be in a pretty good place following this, following Standard and following Whispers of the Old Gods. So this card is Flame Wreathed Faceless. Say that 5 times fast. So the Flame Wreathed Faceless is a 4-mana minion, 7 attack, 7 health. Its text reads Overload 2. So functionally, you could think of this as costing 6, but I think the 4 cost is also important to remember. So let's go back to our old friend, Big Game Hunter. Big Game Hunter used to dominate every card that had 7 attack or more. People just say, well, it just dies the Big Game Hunter. Why do you play it? You get a tempo loss. And this card could be very bad in a Big Game Hunter filled meta, because you pay 4 mana, it gets Big Game Huntered, and then you're out 2 mana the next turn. But in a world where Big Game Hunter is far less played or doesn't exist, Flame Wreathed Faceless seems absolutely insane. Even if you consider the cost of 6 mana. It is 6 mana, 7/7. So that's strictly better than, say, your Boulder Fist Ogre, which is 6 mana, 6/7. And then, it's just, I can't imagine dealing with on a turn 4, 7/7. Or say the Shaman goes second, a turn 3 coined out 7/7. It's going to be able to trade with your board so well. It can also turn the clock on the game very quickly. I mean, if an aggro Shaman is playing this, and aggro Shaman is mostly untouched in the standard format, that's going to be really scary to deal with. It is a 7, you're facing a potential 7 damage if you can't deal with it. And sure, there are cheap answers like an Executing Warrior, Shadow or Death, but say you're rogue, how are you going to deal with this card? Sapping it doesn't do you that much, it just spares you a couple turns. Assassinate, you're losing a mana on that. I think this card is crazy powerful. I'm scared to face against Shamans using this card, but I'm also excited to play Shaman and use this card. It's great that it's a common. Everyone, if you don't open 2, build another one, craft another one, because I think you're going to use it. And I think it's going to be a scary card that a lot of people complain about on the internet. Moving on to the Shaman love, like I said, Shaman got a lot of cards. I only had 15 cards, but 3 of them, just the spoiler alert, 3 of them are Shaman cards. So this next one is a 6 mana minion. It's called Thing from Below. It is a 5 attack, 5 health. has taunt, and its text on the card reads, costs 1 less for each totem you've summoned this game. So summoned is the important word here. It's not just played from your hand, so it doesn't just activate contingently off of Totem Golem or Mana Tide Totem or Flame Tongue Totem. Every hero power you do reduces this by 1 because it is summoning and it is a totem. For instance, if you Tuskar Totemic, which is that 3 mana 3/2 that summons a random totem, that's going to reduce this cost. So I think it's not unrealistic that this card would cost 4/3 typically when you're playing it. So a 4 mana 5/5 taunt is pretty good. A 3 mana 5/5 taunt is insane, and the value just goes up the more and more you play it. This card's scary. I think it's quite good. It's not super exciting. It's just a 5/5 taunter, but I think it helps Shamans fights for the board. It's in any kind of mid-range totem Shaman deck. Say you're playing Totem Golems, maybe you're playing Flame Tongues, and you're playing Tuskar Totemic. This thing is going to get cost reduced like crazy, and I think it fits pretty easily into another deck. If it were just a 6 mana 5/5 taunt, that's not very good, but that cost reduction, anytime a card has cost reduction, and it's worth noting. I think this one is very easy to reduce its cost, so think from below, very powerful. Look out for it while you're playing in Standard. And then we get to the Shaman Legendary, Halaziel the Ascended. This is a 5 mana minion, 4 attack, 6 health. Good stat line, great stat line for a 5. That's what you would want for a 5 mana card. But it also has some pretty delicious text. So its text reads, whenever your spells deal damage, restore that much health to your hero. So this card, I think, almost single-handedly ensures some sort of late, mid-range, or control shaman could be a thing in Standard. Because imagine, even if you're really behind on the board, you play Halaziel, and then you drop Elemental Destruction, right? The card none of you played with. I played with it in my crazy shaman control deck. Right, that's right. Elemental Destruction, the 3 mana spell, deal 4 to 5 damage to all minions. Assuming you do this, you're healing each one of those minions that takes damage. But I think even in not that dream scenario, even playing this on turn 6 with a Lightning Bolt, you're still dealing 3 damage, gaining 3 health. Even with a Lava Burst, you're dealing 5 damage, gaining 5 health. Lightning Storm, the list goes on and on. Shaman has a lot of pretty decent burn spells, and I think Halaziel at 5 mana fits into that sweet spot for Shaman. They're losing Sludge Belcher. The 5 slot hasn't been super contested in the class. I think with its stat line and with its powerful effect, he fits very easily into any kind of slower Shaman, mid-range Shaman, maybe any kind of spell bursty Shaman that could be cool too. The card, I like it a lot. It's very powerful. I expect to see Halaziel in some decks, though who knows. Regardless, it got me excited, and that's why it's here in this video. Now, finally, we're going to finish up with some neutral cards. The first is the Eater of Secrets. Ooh, is a 4 mana minion, 2 attack, 4 health. All right, so those have been bad stat lines. But then we get to its text. It reads, Battle Cry, destroy all enemy secrets, gain +1/+1 for each. So here's where I think we're powerful. Will this card see a lot of play? I don't think so. What's got me excited about it is he fills a potential answer for both Wild and Standard. But talking specifically about Standard, Eater of Secrets is important because, unfortunately for me, and I think a lot of people out there, Freeze Mage, a deck we all love to hate, looks to be going nowhere. It looks to be in a pretty good position for Standard. It really didn't lose anything. It got some very powerful cards. Even when the classic and basic cards got nerfed, Ice Block and Alexstrasza were nowhere in sight. Freeze Mage is going to be a plane to play against. I imagine teching in an Eater of Secrets against a Freeze Mage is going to feel so satisfying. When they've got their Ice Block and their Ice Barrier up and you drop your Eater of Secrets, it's going to feel so great to have a 4 mana, 4/6, and then you destroy their secrets. They no longer have their Ice Block, they no longer have their Ice Barrier. You maybe could push for lethal that turn since Freeze Mages are often low, or even just getting rid of one of their Ice Blocks is good enough by itself. I think it's a little expensive. It'd be nice if maybe this were a cheaper, even if this were like a 3 mana 1/3, just so you could play it and do more on your turn. But regardless, he might be the answer to the solutions to the Freeze Mage problem, which I predict might actually be a significant threat to some of people's fun in Standard mode. It's also curious to note, not that I'm talking about Wild in this video, but playing Eater of Secrets against a turn 6 Mysterious Challenger seems pretty delicious. It's going to absorb all 5 of those secrets, it's going to get really big, and then they're left with, I mean, they still have a 6/6, so it's not that great. But I like it. I like that they were having more neutral cards that are answers to secrets, because currently it was just Flare and Hunter, and that's the only answer. So it's cool. I like this card. Again, depending on how Freeze Mage intensive Standard is, this card could fit into mid-range or control decks to try and answer Freeze Mage and their ice blocks. Next up, we have Hogger, Doom of Elwyn. This is a legendary minion, 7 mana, 6 attack, 6 health, so the stats aren't great. It's a little bit weaker than you would expect. It's a little bit weaker than, say, the Boulder Fist Ogre or Dr. Boom. But this card has me pretty excited because of not only its place in potential warrior deck, but even just, I think it's a deceptively powerful card. And so the text on Hogger, Doom of Elwyn reads, whenever this minion takes damage, summon a 2/2 null with taunt. So you would think, well, that's not so great. But thinking about it, I think there's a lot of opportunities that this is powerful. Even if you drop this when your opponent has a board, unless they feel like silencing it, and silencing effects have gotten much worse in Standard, you're gonna be at least getting probably 8/8 worth of stats if they trade a 6 attack creature into this. And so 8/8 for 7 spread across 2 bodies, one of them being taunt, is not bad. So if you're in a bad situation, that taunt could really spare you a lot of damage. But you say they don't have a 6 attack minion on the board, then they have to trade 2 things into it, and then you get into territory where you're getting 10 mana worth of, 10 worth of stats for 7 mana, and that's really good. And then maybe they have to waste a spell on it. Swipe doesn't kill it directly. Starfire doesn't kill it directly. Holy Fire doesn't kill it directly. A lot of spells don't even kill this directly, and so you're gonna get potentially 1, maybe 2 bodies out of it. And my excitement is for it maybe at the end of a warrior curve, a mid-range warrior or a minion-based warrior or even a control warrior. Because if you can get some whirlwind effects off on this, this card gets really scary. If you play this and whirlwind once or twice, even once, it protects itself from further minion trades. But if you do it twice, then you're talking again, 10 mana, 10 attack and 10 health for 7 mana. I think it's pretty good. I don't see a lot of people getting excited about this, but I think this really could find a home. It's a niche home. I don't think you're going to see it everywhere, but I think it could find a decent place, maybe in a warrior deck. All right, so our second to last card here is one of the old gods in the set. This is N'Zoth the Corruptor. It is a 10 mana minion. It has 5 attack and 7 health. All right, so the stat line is pretty bad. So what's its effect? Its effect is Battle Cry. Summon your Death Rattle minions that died this game. So that's really good. Death Rattle minions, like I said earlier in this video, are usually pretty powerful. And then resummoning them all, again, legendaries, at least traditionally, that get played are ones that have immediate effects when you play them. And this has a very immediate effect. You can summon back all of your Death Rattle minions that die this game. If you're playing a deck that's built around Death Rattle, I think you get a ton of value off of this. But even if you're just playing a few good cards that have Death Rattle, this gets pretty powerful. Even if this just summons a Cairn or just summons a Sylvanas, that's still a lot of stats for the 10 mana that you played it for. And then it gets even better, the more Death Rattle minions you have. I think this card is really powerful. I could see maybe if Death Rattle Raptor Rogue is a thing, this could maybe fit at the top of the curve. For 10 mana though, it is a little bit expensive. So maybe this just goes into a slower deck that plays just a few Death Rattles, but you get to drop this, get some Death Rattles, and it's like the way in which Dr. Boom was good, in which you play it and you have an automatic board. Dr. Boom was a 7/7 with 2 1/1s. This is a 5/7 with potentially a 5/5 that steals an enemy minion, or a Cairn, a 4/5 that spawns another 4/5. So I think this card is really powerful. I love the art. I love N'Zoth. I'm going to try to build a deck around it, certainly. The final card, and I think one which is going to shape the metagame, one that got me really excited, still has me probably the most excited, is Cthun. He was like the first card we saw from the reveals, and his power level has stayed quite high. This is a 10 mana minion, has 6 attack, 6 health, and has a battle cry that reads, deal damage equal to this minion's attack, randomly split among enemies. So again, checkbox number 1, it has an immediate effect on the board. Even if you have no buffs, this is a 10 mana 6/6 that deals 6 damage randomly split when it shows up. But as we've seen, as more cards from the set were revealed, lots of creatures are designed to buff this wherever it is in your deck or your hand, make it bigger and bigger and bigger. I think Cthun obviously fits into control archetypes, so I think, especially with the cards that have been built up around it to support it, Warrior and Priest seem to be a natural home. Druid, actually some very decent cards that support Cthun. And then I think maybe even we might see a Rogue Cthun deck. But this card I think is going to make people really mad. I expect it to be a pretty dominant force in Standard. Because imagine if it's to 8-8 or 10-10. Dropping it on turn 10 and it deals 10 damage, it could clear their board and deal some face damage to them, and then you have a 10-10 they have to deal with. And again, our old friend Big Game Hunter was nerfed, so he's not going to be in as many decks. They don't have the easy answer that they can just kill it right away. But again, he already did his effect. He already did that huge burst damage from hand. I feel like a lot of people are going to be killed by 12, 14, 16 points of burst damage from Cthun. It's actually strange that he's in this. I realize this is a card that a card that requires a deck that is built up specifically around it. But Blizzard doesn't like play a card from your hand and win. And this seems like a card that is play it from your hand and win. Cthun is really powerful. There's a lot of cards that are built up around it to support it. The Twin Emperor Velcor is a legendary that I think really well supports this. Helps you survive to the late game. Cthun is really powerful. He's hard to assess in a vacuum, but I am almost positive some kind of Cthun deck is going to be making its way up the rank ladder. So that's it. That'll do it for this set review. The 15 cards that got me excited. There's a lot more cards that got me excited, but I wanted to make the video not like 5 hours long. So thank you so much. Again, my name is Alex. I do a lot of things on the Impact Factor. It's a blog, it's a podcast, I have a Twitch stream. Everything you need to know about me is in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Which cards do you think got you excited? Were there 10, 15, 5? What's the number 1 card that got you excited? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, everyone, make an impact.